Did someone say bring predictions back? Yes guys, and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. And today's video is a bit of a different one, because if you remember in 2021 I predicted the first leg of the last 16 games of the Europa League. However though, in 2024 it is back. In this video I'm going to be predicting all of the first leg of the round of 16 games in the Europa League, plus Villa versus Ajax in the Conference League. So, obviously, I wanted to include Villa Ajax in there because that would be such a good game. But yeah, all the British teams in the Europa League are still in, like Liverpool, Brighton, West Ham, and Rangers. So yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into business. And also, just quickly, before I point out, so why am I recording this video today? Well, because both Sporting Lisbon and Benfica are both at home in their first legs, so they can't clash at the same day. So UEFA confirmed before the draw that Sporting Lisbon versus Atalanta will be played on tomorrow, whilst Benfica versus Rangers is played on Thursday like normal. And then they both play on Thursday away. But however, the Benfica is an early kickoff, while Sporting is the late kickoff. So just if you're confused, then yeah, fair enough. Then I'm the same thing. But yeah, let's get straight into it. Okay, so the first game is obviously Sporting Lisbon versus Atalanta, and of course, Atalanta have been going really well in Serie A, and Sporting, by the time of this recording, I think they're joint first in the Portuguese league. I am not entirely sure. But Atalanta, I think they're in the top 4 in Serie A. So, looking good to get into the Champions League next year. Or they're joint 4th, I'm not sure. But they're 4th or 5th, whatever. But obviously, Sporting, obviously, they did get to the quarterfinals last season of the Europa League, but obviously they knocked Arsenal out, which was quite mad. And obviously, Sporting, obviously, Victor Gyökeres, who's been on absolutely terrific form for him this year since leaving Coventry. But they've still got players like Marcus Edwards, who's a former Spurs Academy graduate. But obviously, he absolutely cooked Spurs last season in the Champions League, and Arsenal, to be fair. But you got to also remember as well that Sporting were in the Champions League last year. So and obviously Pedro Gonçalves as well. So Sporting do have a good team, obviously under different management, obviously a management role. Obviously, no, in a good management. I think Sporting, they always are underdogs in Europe. So I'm going to say that Sporting to win 2-1 from the first leg in Lisbon. So let's move on to the... Okay, guys, so now let's move on to the first of the British teams. So, of course, I'm talking about Sparta Prague versus Liverpool. Of course, Sparta Prague, obviously, yeah, the first recording was quite terrible, but they actually drew 0-0 in the Prague derby against Slavia Prague. Obviously, Liverpool, obviously, as well, they're still top of the Premier League. Well, obviously, they've got that huge game against my team, Manchester City, on Sunday, which, to be honest with you, I'm already nervous for, but let's not get onto that. But Liverpool, the amount of injuries they've had at the moment is absolutely remarkable. And not in a good way, but in a bad way. But on paper, Liverpool should be cruising through. But saying that, though, Sparta Prague, say, look at Prague teams in Europe recently. Obviously, Sparta, obviously, they beat Rangers at home. A couple of years ago, actually, when Rangers got to the final. But Slavia, obviously, they're not Leicester. They're not Leicester out a couple of years ago. And Not Rangers out. Not Rangers out as well. In that same season. But to be honest with you, Liverpool, even though they're away, I think they're still going to get a convincing 3-0 away win. So let's move on to the next game. Okay, guys, so the next game we're going to be talking about is Karabag versus Bayer Leverkusen. Of course, Karabag, I don't know too much about them. Obviously, what I do know about them, obviously, they're not Braga out in the last stage, in the last round, obviously, after extra time, which was quite remarkable. So they became the first club from Azerbaijan ever to qualify for a knockout to the last 16 of a UEFA club competition, which is quite remarkable for them. But Bayer Leverkusen, by the way, what a story with them. Xabi Alonso. And obviously, by the time of this recording, obviously Bayern Munich, they play in the Champions League tonight against Lazio. However, Bayer Leverkusen are currently sitting a massive 10 points ahead of Bayern in the title race. And with Bayer Leverkusen winning 2-0 away at Cologne this weekend, at the weekend, can Leverkusen actually win the treble? Because if you look at it, they're still in the DFB Pokal, they're still in the Europa League, and they're still probably likely to win the league. Can they do it? Who knows? But when I'm talking about Jeremy Frimpong and Alex Grimaldo, nearly 40 goal contributions for fullbacks, by the way. That is just extraordinary. Xabi Alonso, obviously, has really got him going. In his first full season in charge, he's got him. And by the way, what's mental is that Bayer Leverkusen have yet to lose a single game all season. Even in the two cups, this and the Pokal, they are still yet to lose a game all season. They're still unbeaten, which is remarkable. And I'm going to say, Bayer Leverkusen to win 5-1. I'm going to say Leverkusen 5, Karabag 1, even though Karabag are the home team, but yeah, I do think that Karabag will get absolutely destroyed by Leverkusen, who in fact actually got close to the final last year. So, okay, so the last of the quarter to 6 kickoffs on Thursday, of course, is another one of the British teams. I'm talking about Roma, who got to the final last year, versus Brighton. And of course, Brighton, obviously, they have been very inconsistent in the Premier League. They're currently sitting 9th by the time of this recording. But yeah, 9th. But Roma, they only now sit 1 point off the top 4 after sacking Mourinho like 2 months ago, which is quite remarkable to think. But Brighton, though, they actually have been good in Europe this year. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, João Pedro, obviously, he's the top scorer of the Europa League with 6 goals or something like that. Obviously, Matoma, he's now out for the rest of the season, I think, which is quite sad. But Brighton has still got players like Danny Welbeck, Ivan Ferguson, João Pedro, like I mentioned earlier, Pascal Gross, Lewis Dunk, Jason Steele. But Roberto De Zerbi as a manager, he is quite underrated. And obviously Brighton, yes, I know things haven't been working out for them this year. They've been going on winless runs. But however, though, in the Europa League, they are different level. Even though, I want to talk about Roma, though, real quick. Because obviously, under Mourinho, they obviously got to the final last year. But obviously lost to Sevilla, who obviously who absolutely adored the Europa League, by the way. And obviously I did do a video on the final, actually. To be fair, I felt like last year Roma did deserve to win the Europa League. Did deserve to win it last year, I can't lie, because I thought they were really good. But Sevilla, we all know. But obviously things weren't going great for them this season in the league. Obviously Mourinho got sacked, which was an absolute quite heartbreak, actually, with the fans. But Daniele De Rossi, a Roma legend, has got him going. But do I think Brighton will get a result to get? You know what? I'm going to say Brighton to lose 1-0. I'm going to say Roma 1, Brighton 0. I mean, 1-0. You could Brighton. Will you take that though? I mean, at the Amex, they are good, and they also they've done the double over Ajax this season earlier in the competition. So who knows? Okay, so the first of the 8 o'clock kickoffs, we're going to be talking about Marseille versus Villarreal, and yes, this one's a bit of a weird game because Marseille really underachieved in Ligue 1 this year. And Villarreal, they're like 13th, 14th in La Liga by the time of this recording. Wait. No, they're 12th. Ugh. Oh, God. That's quite bad, that. And Marseille, they're obviously sitting in 7th in Ligue 1, which last year, they finished like 2nd or 3rd. No, they finished 3rd. And to be honest, though, no one's going to catch PSG in that league, are they, really? But Marseille, obviously, they beat Shakhtar Donetsk in the last round. Obviously, Marseille, they still got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who is just lethal. Iliman Ndiaye, obviously, Sheffield United fans will remember him. Obviously, they do, because they miss him at the moment, aren't they, the Blades? Falvine, I think this game's going to be... I'm going to say 1-1. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be a good game. But saying that, though, still love you, Villarreal, for beating Man United in the 2021 final. So, hey! Okay, so the next game is another of the British teams. I'm going to say English because I just forgot about Rangers still in there. It is of course Freiburg versus West Ham, and obviously this game actually happened earlier in the competition in the group stage. And also you got to look as well, Karabakh Bayer Leverkusen. I think they met earlier in the competition as well. I think. I am not entirely sure, but let me just double. No, Atalanta Sporting, they met earlier in the competition. And yeah, it was, yeah. So some of these games in the last 16 had already happened earlier in the competition. So, but obviously West Ham beat them home and away. But Freiburg, obviously, they knocked out Lens. But obviously West Ham, they've been on a good, okay run at the moment, aren't they? Winning games now and then. Obviously, Jared Bowen on fire. But obviously, West Ham, they absolutely love Europe, don't they, these days? The Hammers. Yes. I feel like West Ham can go far. But where will they... But how? But where? But saying that, right, can their magic in Europe continue? I'm not so sure. Even though they got to the semi-finals 2 years ago, honestly, they won the Conference League last year, hence why they've qualified for this year. Even though they finished like 14th in the Premier League, because of them winning the Conference League. About just as well, the winners of the Conference League currently goes up to the Europa League. If you didn't qualify for it, for your league position, unless if you're in the Conference League but qualified for the Champions League, which is quite confusing. But Freiburg, they've been doing okay in Bundesliga actually. They currently sit 9th, which isn't great, but you just got to make your way through it, don't you? So, obviously they got that Juan, that Japanese guy who scored an absolute thunderbolt against Germany in the World Cup in Qatar, which was absolutely remarkable. And obviously West Ham, they still got Jared Bowen, Antonio if he's fit, but they still got James Ward-Prowse, who's been an absolute brilliant player all season for him. Mohamed Kudus, Lucas Paqueta, Kurt Zouma, Areola, Flapianski in net. I'm joking. So yeah, my prediction for this game, I'm going to say, a 2-1 West Ham win, So yeah. Oh, okay, so the second to last game, it is AC Milan against Slavia Prague. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, Slavia obviously drew 0-0 in the derby at the weekend. But AC Milan, on the other hand, they actually played on Friday. They played on Friday, but they won away at Lazio. And Lazio had 3 red cards that day. Obviously, I didn't watch it. Obviously, I think my good mate Zach Tominski did. So, Zach, how did AC Milan play on Friday at Lazio? I don't know. AC Milan, they're a quality team. They've still got Rafael Leao, Olivier Giroud, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Maijanan, I think that's how you say his name. The French keeper, Theo Hernandez. But Slavia Prague, obviously, I don't know too much about them, but obviously I didn't know about them when they played Rangers a couple of years ago. But if you haven't checked out that video, I'll leave the link to it down in the description. So if you want to check out what I did for that video, but obviously then they had Rangers, Spurs, Arsenal, and Manchester United. You can check that out as well. But AC Milan at San Siro, they're a different level, aren't they? Even though they kind of scraped past Rennes, but let's be honest though, the 3-0 was all but sealed their place in the knockout stages. So my prediction, I'm going to say a 3-0 AC Milan win. Leao to score a brace. Okay, so the last of the Europa League games I'm going to be talking about, before we move on to Villa Ajax, it is of course the big one. I had to save it to last day, I'm sorry. It is Benfica versus Rangers at the Estadio de Luz. And this is the game I've been looking forward to since the draw was made. What an encounter. Of course, I know more about these teams because I've been keeping a close eye on them. But obviously Benfica, on the weekend, they lost 5-0. Yeah, roll the clip.
5-0! 5!
Yep, they lost 5-0 away at the Dragao on Sunday to Porto in the Classico, which was remarkable, which was extraordinary to think. Benfica getting battered at Porto, one of their big rivals. Ugh. And yeah, obviously on Thursday, last Thursday as well, they actually lost to Sporting in the Cup. So they lost 2 derbies in a row. Well, technically Porto isn't a derby, but it's the big rivalry. So, but Sporting is a derby, but because it's the Lisbon derby, innit? So, but yeah, obviously these two teams actually met in the group stage in 2021 during during COVID. And obviously that year, Sporting won the league, and obviously Rangers had won the league, won the Scottish Premiership. And obviously Benfica, they're currently now second in the league. So for the Sporting bit, I will put that Sporting are now top of the league by a point. Benfica are second now, following that humping at Porto on the weekend. Well, Rangers, they've been on a mad run, aren't they, at the moment, on the Philippe Clermont. Even though they lost to Motherwell last time out, they're still top of the Scottish Premiership due to Celtic slip at Hearts in Edinburgh at the weekend, which is quite extraordinary. So the treble for Rangers the quadruple actually is still on for the Gers. Because if you look at it, they've won the Scottish League Cup earlier in the year. But they could still win the league, the Scottish Cup, and they could still win the Europa League. They came so close 2 years ago, which was heartbreak. But obviously the 2 meetings between the two both ended in draws. But however, what's key for Rangers' advantage over Benfica is that Rangers have a good record against Portuguese opposition when it comes into the Europa League. Obviously, say in 2011, they knocked Sporting out on away goals. They even knocked Sporting out in 2008 in the UEFA Cup up as well. But 2006, 2005-06, by the way, in the Champions League, they drew both games to Porto. Home and away, by the way. 1-1 and 2-2. In 1920, they played Porto again in this competition, they drew 1-1 in the dugout with Alfredo Morelos, by the way, who did love the Europa League. And obviously they won 2-0 at Ibrox, but obviously the most recent Portuguese opposition they played was Braga. Obviously, 19-20, beat them home and away in both legs. 4-2 on aggregate overall score because they won 3-2 at Ibrox, but they won 1-0 in Braga. But then in the quarterfinals 2 years ago, I was in Glasgow at the time, so maybe I could have snuck the ticket. Could have snuck into Ibrox that day, but yeah, I was too busy doing the ground hopping in Scotland. Obviously they lost 1-0 in the quarters, but they won 3-1. I think they won 3-2 actually on aggregate because 1-0. The Rangers were leading 2-1. Then Braga brought it to extra time, and then it was 2-2. And then Kemaru scored. But at the Estadio de Luz, Benfica are a different level, you know. But also Angel Di Maria actually said that Rangers have the best squad in Europe. Ooh. Alright, praise there. However, though, I'm going to straight into it. My prediction, I'm going to say Benfica 2, Rangers 2. James Tavernier score a penalty and Dessers to score. So, yeah. And for Benfica, I think Di Maria will score and Rafa Silva. So, I know we'll be a full-time reaction out for that game as well. So, yeah. And now, if you think that should be the end of the video. No, there's one more game to predict. It is in the Conference League. Yes, I'm talking about Ajax versus Aston Villa. And what a game that's going to be. Even though I'm not going to be watching it, sadly, because I'll be watching Roma versus Brighton. Ajax, what the hell has happened to you all season, eh? You're in the Conference League. And you just about scrape past Bodø Glimt of Norway. An amateur Norwegian team. Just scraped past them, by the way. That was mad. I was at Aston Villa, sitting in the top 4 in the Premier League, and looking likely to be heading into the Champions League next season. But obviously, like I said earlier with Brighton, obviously Ajax did lose twice, 2-0 to Brighton, home and away. Can it happen to Villa? So, can Ajax lose to Villa? I think they will. Right now, I know Villa have had a, shaky up and down patch, but you still can't deny they have been absolutely magnificent all season. Ollie Watkins, John McGinn, Douglas Luiz, just to name a few, who have been absolutely extraordinary. Moussa Diaby as well, who's been a terrific signing for Villa. He really has brought and pace on the right-hand side. But Ajax, Jordan Henderson in midfield, Chuba Apcon, former Middlesbrough player. Yeah, but saying that, no, Dutch teams haven't had a good record against English sides, so that could play a part in Villa's favour. So, but at the Johan Cruyff Arena, it's different for Villa. But however, I'm going to say Villa to get a 2-0 away win. And yes, guys, that is the end of the video here. Hope you guys did enjoy. Sorry if I took too long to do this. My voice is going. Smash a like, subscribe, get your notifications on. Comment down below how you think the British teams will get on. And who do you think, I won't ask the Conference League question, who do you think will be going to the Aviva Stadium in Dublin for the 2024 Europa League final? Personally, I think it's going to be Liverpool against Bayer Leverkusen. And I think Leverkusen will win it. Just because of how good they've been this season. So yeah, thank you for watching. Love, peace and techers.